This is Minda Wilson for Urgent Care. Welcome back. I am truly excited and thrilled to have Dr. Myles Schneider on the show. He seems to have come up with a very interesting solution to our healthcare problem. Welcome, Dr. Schneider.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
I just want to get right into your roadmap. So
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about how you think we can sort of solve some of the healthcare problems that are facing this country.
Well, all of us, we've had problems before Affordable Care Act. We're having problems now with it, and there seems to be no consensus about how we're going to go forward. And the problems of what we associate with it are, all of us are concerned about having affordable quality care, high premiums, high co-pays, high deductibles, and all the money we spend as a nation is enormous on healthcare, and that's all significant. They are all significant concerns. However, they're not the cause of the problem, and we never deal with the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is disease. Too much disease, too many people getting sicker and sicker at younger and younger ages with serious chronic conditions or diseases like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer, obesity, and high cholesterol, high blood pressure. And that's the bad news. Now, the good news is we know that 70% of these conditions, the serious ones I just mentioned, are preventable if you have early detection and makes them a little more sensible lifestyle choices. And my plan incentivizes the people to do that, and also part of the first half of Restoring Health and Healthcare. And the second half tells people how they can measure and monitor their own health as they decide to go on this journey to wellness. I call it the wellness continuum, that part of the book. But that's basically my idea, and I want the government to lead the way and incentivize people to do this with money.
So let's say you're a young person. How do you think that those incentives will work?
Well, I'm sure I'd imagine with most people work. Here's how I got one of the ideas came from the time when the Obama administration had their things. They were trying to stimulate the car industry, and they offered $5,000 for some clunker and to trade it in. And I know one of my sons took advantage of it. And they gave $1 billion. They ran out of money within a couple of weeks. They had to put another $1 billion in. So that's $5,000 once. My plan, you can theoretically get a $5,000 bonus or tax break, a tax deduction, 18 years or older, if you're in excellent health every year. But you don't have to be in excellent health. People who aren't in excellent health can still get financial rewards. The way it works is I call for, just like we do with our cars, which we seem to take better care of than our bodies, that you have to have, like you go to the shop, you have to have an inspection once a year. You have to have a physical once a year. You can get your insurance. You can never lose your insurance. You can never be penalized, charged more, no pre-existing. The purpose of getting you the mandatory, what I call mandatory wellness exam, is that we get you to the doctor once a year, and that takes care of the early detection. Now, the result of this exam is going to be what's wrong with you, and if you have issues like maybe you're overweight, or you're smoking, or you have some kind of disease, you have blood pressure, high cholesterol, high sugar, by next year's exam, the doctor will tell you, listen, I'd like you to lose 20 pounds, maybe get into a little aerobic capacity, your oxygen capacity should be built up, et cetera, and tells you exactly what to do. If you come in next year and you do that and you reach those goals, then you get a financial reward from $1,000 to $5,000. I think $5,000 for anybody, especially somebody 18 years old or older, is a significant incentive. And insurance companies would follow. Some of them do it already on a lesser scale with incentives financially for people to try to do make healthier behaviors in their life.
So these incentives, though, I know that even myself, I have trouble making myself go on a diet and losing those last 10 pounds or exercising every day. How do you make sure the people actually do what they need to do?
Good question. Well, you can't force them, and this is America. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. It's a good point. You can't force. But I've done some research on this, especially on the incentive part, and some of the studies show they don't go ongoing incentives, but in the short term there are There are studies. There was, for example, a large company in the U.S. wanted to get their smoking employees to stop smoking because people who smoked, according to them, cost their insurance people almost $6,000 a year extra than someone who didn't. So they offered up to $800 a year in incentives to get them people to stop smoking. And they had a phenomenal result the first year, but they only did it for a year. So after that, some people did regress because that was the end of the program. It was just a pilot study. There are other ones about weight loss. England's trying to do it on weight loss, and some other countries are trying to do it right now and it's working, but no one's done any long-term incentive plus the kind of money I'm talking about. You can't force people, but the way I looked at it financially, if just 10% of our population did it, and it's complicated, and I could probably waste time getting into it. In my opinion, just 10% of the population did it, we would save around $200 billion in a year, and it would cost maybe 48 or 50 billion to give out incentives. So there'd be a surplus of money that we could use to support and subsidize people who can't afford health insurance. We can do anything we want with the money.
So let's say you prescribe behavior and they do it for a year. Would the incentives continue every year? So, yes. And how would that work? So a person could earn an extra $5,000 a year by maintaining their health?
Yes, because there was so many studies. Like, I am in the medical field almost 50 years. I'm a podiatrist, but I've done a lot of writing on health and wellness, and I've been in fitness all my life. I'm 74. I've done a lot of research on it. There's one study in my profession that came out in 2010 on diabetics, because we see a lot of diabetics. And they did, it was a international company that does work in marketing and health research called the Thomson Reuters. And they took 32,000 charts of diabetics from 18 to 64 years old in the U.S., and 43,000 charts from diabetics 65 and older, and their bodies a little more obviously compromised. For every dollar spent on the younger group, if they saw a podiatrist once a year because of the terrible complications you can have in your feet with diabetes, we would save $27 to $51 for $1. And on the elderly, the older group, because they were more, their bodies were more susceptible already, and their immune systems were shot a little more, and they had more disease for a longer period of time, they still save $9 to $13 for every dollar spent. That's just one disease, one symptom or sign of one disease. I mean, there are other studies that show this. The World Health Organization I saw that. That's another reason why I got an idea, was researching something else, and I saw this in 2011. They came out in conjunction with the CDC that 80% of heart disease, 80% of diabetes, and over 40% of cancer are preventable by early detection and lifestyle choices, making better lifestyle choices. And they identified nutrition, exercise, and smoking. Just those three, and I can add a few more I think would make sense. That's 70% of disease. It's just phenomenal to me.
So I think it's a, preventative medicine has been the holy grail. But oftentimes people will stick to a program for a while, and then they're sort of want to go back to their Cheetos. And I mean, I'm like that, Cheetos and sitting on the couch. I mean, so money isn't often enough, to incentivize people.
Well, it's true. It's true. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. I'm from New York, so I talk fast and interrupt a lot. I'm sorry.
I love that. I love those New Yorker boys.
Anyway, I would say to that there, in addition to, I'm just talking about one part. Now, part of my plan calls for a massive education program, constant, but really starting at elementary school all the way up, about what health really is. That health really is about how you take care of your body and what you really need to do. And maybe by the time the kids get older, it'll be ingrained in them. And that works. I know they're calling for that now for the opioid crisis. I know President Trump called for that too recently. And it worked in the 70s and 80s when we had a terrible drug crisis. And it started with say no to alcohol and drugs. And we cut down drug use by 50% there. but then we stopped it and it came back. So you need to have an education process along the way, and you have to keep telling people how they have a much more better, viable life. I don't think most people, and your point is really good, because in the education thing, I really think, I know what you said about going back to the Cheetos, et cetera, but I don't really think most people realize how much control they have over their own health. I think they've given up the responsibility for their own health because they think the body's so complex. You got to go to school for 8 years. You got to go to post-training for another 5 years. And you got to be 30 years old till you get out so you can start taking care of the human body, i.e. healthcare professionals. And why they're important, and we need them, what the body really needs is good nutrition, food, good water. You have to hydrate yourself, exercise, sleep. Body really needs lifestyle habits to be healthy. It doesn't really need most of the time lotions, potions, medicines, and so forth. And we need to ingrain, people need to understand that, and they need to make a priority of health in their life. I know I'm going on and on, but how many people of all walks of life, all economic backgrounds, all races consider college education really important? And so some people are lucky, they can do it in 4 years out of the minor. Others take 8 years. Others go to school at night. They work 2 jobs. Why? Because college education is a priority. Well, we got to make health the number one priority in our life. And then it's a thing that you got to keep talking about, educating, and financially rewarding. And eventually it'll happen. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but to get the program going, it would only take 10% of the population to make it financially feasible. And another step, I do recommend in restoring health to healthcare, a 2-year pilot study just to show how effective this could be. And so it would be a 2-year program just to get an idea how many people and how much money we can save, and see if I'm right. Because I think, from what I can tell, it should definitely work. And there's going to be enough people who will do it.
It seems to me, though, that if you're focusing on adults, you may be missing some great opportunities, because people develop their habits when they're young. So things like childhood obesity or physical fitness. I mean, physical fitness now is not being provided in schools. So
I agree with you. You're right. Well, that's why I said you have to have ongoing education from elementary school all the way up about what health really is. And I would agree with you. I don't understand why. I was just talking to my nieces and nephews and my grandkids the other day about it. I can't believe PE is not mandatory in schools anymore. That makes no sense to me. And I believe it should be. You should have to have PE all the time. It shouldn't be a choice. Physical exercise should become ingrained in us, in our school system. You're absolutely right. It's got to start early, because some of our generation, I'm not saying, look, I don't know how old you are, I'm not asking, I'm 74, so some of my generation, a lot of us are not doing well, others are, but you're right, it has to be the youth coming up that's ultimately going to save this. If we don't do this, I'd like to tell you one prediction that I'm pretty sure you can take to the bank. We will never, ever be able to get this thing under control from a financial standpoint. Premiums have to go up, deductibles have to go up, costs have to go up, because of one fact that's, unless we change this, it's a fact. Every year, more people getting sicker, younger diseases with serious problems. And unless we change it, I don't see how it's ever going to get any different. We're just going to have to get used to spending a fortune on healthcare.
So would these incentives be able to be applied to children? I mean, what about exercise for them? Because again, habit building is very important. So if you start when somebody's 18, you may not be able to, that's 18 years of ingrained behavior. If you start when someone's younger, you may be able to avoid the problem altogether, an hour of exercise every day, annual physicals, diet. What do you think about that?
That's a good idea. I think that could be incorporated. You can give, for a child, they can give whatever they either give something to the child, which may make more sense than giving tax breaks. Not going to help the child. The parents will love it. But yeah, that could be worked. It's like I say, my background is in medical field. I'm not really an economist, an actuary, or a financial wizard, other than I'm sure there are people, if this ever became part of the law, and hopefully it's going to, have more intelligence than I do about the economics, configure it a plan that could be worked in, but there's no reason why you can't give incentives to kids. I think that'd be a great idea. And I think they would probably respond because to a child, probably $20 is a big deal. Or maybe they can get them a gift, or maybe get them a pair of fitness shoes, or a chance to a coupon to get involved in a fitness class, or money that pays towards being on a soccer team or a basketball team, to something like that, or whatever it is they like that would work for kids. You bring up a great point, because the amount of money that companies spend on commercials that affect children are astounding for doing, the things they should eat, meaning not necessarily healthy foods. And they have athletes and rock stars doing these ads, and the government has maybe 1/20th the amount of money to try to counteract this. You bring up a good point. I would agree with that. That can certainly be worked into it.
So if we don't have these incentives now, and people are interested in taking care of themselves and their children, so what kind of small changes do you think that people could make now to improve their overall fitness, improve their overall health? Because the truth is, with today's insurance, if you do that, you're going to reduce your own out-of-pocket costs, because medical deductibles are staggering. And people can't afford to pay for, ongoing medical costs themselves anymore. So what changes do you suggest they make?
Well, first of all, if you're an adult, they should obviously talk to their physicians about starting anything like major changes. But simple things like go to a resource, whether it's the government, like the government has, I think, a great resource on nutrition called My Government. It's called nutrition.gov, and there's myplate.gov. The U.S. we have several websites that talks about how old you are, what your height and weight is, or how many, and recommends what kind of calories you should be eating a day. It recommends exactly what kind of foods to eat, which are healthy. Or you can go to a resource, like other physicians have written books about nutrition. Your own physician. That's one thing. So I think we need to eat better. According to the three things that were said in most of the studies, eating better and regular exercise. So obviously, if you haven't exercised a while, probably check with your physician. Just going out for a walk. I know there's big things about it recently on TV. Walking, just simple walking, can make a huge difference. I mean, I met a person who's 90 years old at recently a social event about a month ago, and her family a year ago, she couldn't talk on the phone because she had breathing issues. They thought she wasn't going to make it. On her own, she decided to lose weight and start walking, and now she's like a different woman. She did that between the ages of 89 and 90. So you can change these things, but exercise and probably nutrition are the two biggest ones. The ones they don't mention in studies, which I think are big for kids, but I don't know how you're going to change it, because I remember I was young once, and sleep. They don't get enough sleep. Our kids, amazingly, when we were younger, we were in bed at a certain time. Sleep is another big issue, but that may be harder to incentivize. But nutrition, exercise, and for people who smoke, I wish they would stop. There's still 15% of the adults in this country still smoke, which is amazing to me, which is sad.
So let's talk about some small changes, going for a walk, improving their diet, maybe just cutting out one thing that they eat now that maybe isn't the best for them. What other kind of suggestions do you have? Maybe small, marginal changes, maybe.
Go ahead.
Now, I was going to ask you what you had suggests.
Well, I personally suggest you do things very slowly. You're right. You get up and take let's say you're talking about walking, you're talking about something. For example, get up, if you haven't exercised in a while, you check with doctor, you're fine. Go out 5 or 10 minutes one day. And then, in a couple of weeks, you'll move it up. A few more minutes. And the next, I have an example in the second half of the book is called The Wellness Continuum, and it's a self-measurable plan. And I have an example of a woman. We take her through 24 weeks. I just picked a woman. Man, she's a fictitious person. She has everything wrong with her. And I take them through a 6-month plan of exactly how to change everything in her life. Just gradually, like one little thing a week. Like maybe take one candy bar that you eat a day, or one bad thing a day, and substitute it with one vegetable. Do that for a couple of weeks. And then maybe get up and walk 5 or 10 minutes. And maybe, one night start 5 or 10 minutes to meditate or just sit and relax and calm down and try to eliminate some of the stress. I mean, everything needs to be done very slowly and carefully, not only because you don't want to hurt yourself, but I've been into this many years. I've worked years with athletes. And the key to preventing reoccurrence is you got to do things gradually so that people get used to it and don't have breakdowns and decide they're going to quit. So I'd rather a person take 6 months to a year to 2 years to really get their health completely in the right direction than do everything all at once. And in 1 month, they, get on the scale and, oh my God, after 1 month, something happened, they quit. So it has to be a lifestyle change. It's got to be something you're going to make a decision. It's going to be the rest of your life. You're going to live like this, but do it slowly so you don't, really get all the anxiety and the issues that come up with, oh my God, I got to eat, the cravings. By the way, cravings could be eliminated in a lot of ways. If you have enough good stuff, if you get enough good vitamins and minerals in your body won't crave it that much. Body craves things because it's missing something.
So
and drink water 20 minutes before you eat, about 8 ounces. That'll help cut your appetite.
So that's a brilliant idea. So if somebody just decides to drink an 8-ounce glass of water before they sit down to eat something, that will help curb their appetite and it'll hydrate them so they'll be more healthy.
Yeah, that's about 20 minutes before. So that helps. That's one thing. I mean, that's been in medical books and medical journals. That's one idea. And again, the other thing is just, you're right. Don't do everything at once. It's one little thing. Take one little thing. I do it in the book. We have this lady, she eliminates one thing and adds one healthy thing to her thing to her diet for the first couple of weeks. And so forth. And she just goes, we take her through 6 months of how she can change literally everything. So in that case, we're talking more, but not just nutrition and exercise. We're talking about sleep, and we're talking about other issues. She didn't smoke, but getting rest and reducing stress. And in her case, I made the story that she has financial stress in her life, which most people do, and how she made some changes to try to even change that in her life over 6 months.
So what you're saying is this continuum that you're discussing in your book called Restoring Health, right, to Healthcare?
Correct.
And that gives you an idea of how you can very slowly, incrementally manage your physical health and your financial health and return you to wellness.
Right. And I tell you, as far as getting people incentivized, you just reminded me of something I have in there. What we start with is you take, unless you have a doctor work with you, you can take your own physical history. I have a detail of 11 pages of everything that's, in addition to whatever, if you know your blood test, we take your own medical history, and then you start doing some of these changes. I give you mine when I've been doing this for many years, but I remember way back, I started to really get into, I believe in vitamin supplements. And I don't want to tell anybody they have to do it. If your doctors you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I noticed after a few months, I thought I wasn't didn't see any changes. I noticed something like I had dandruff for years, and it was gone. I had this little skin thing behind my ear. My doctor would tell me about it. No big deal, but I had to put a cream on. That was gone. Little things start changing that you don't even know. So you do this history, then I have you take what I call, you take your own little, every 90 days, you're supposed to reassess your health history, and you're going to notice changes. If you're doing this, you will notice changes, most people. And that keeps you motivated to keep going, because I'll tell you one thing you will have, if you're not in great health and you start being in good health, or you don't exercise a lot, and you start out carefully with your doctors checking you out first, especially if you're older or you had some problems, you will have increased energy. You're going to feel better. You should sleep better. I'm not guarantees. I'm not trying to treat anybody, but these are things you read about. People have dramatic changes in their health by just doing small things.
Right.
You don't have to do a lot of big things.
And it affects your mental health as well, because if you're feeling better, it affects your issues like depression and that's another contributing factor to why people are out of shape, is that they're mentally out of shape as well.
Right. And if you don't eat properly, your brain needs a certain amount of vitamins and minerals just like everything else. It won't function as well. Absolutely. And when you exercise regularly, if you talk to anybody who doesn't and starts doing it, ask them, the first thing they're usually going to tell you is they just feel better and they have more energy. That's the first thing they tell you, usually. Besides weight loss, if that happens. But energy and feeling better is the first thing most people will mention. And hopefully that feeling will keep continuing to incentivize people, forgetting the economic incentives, just because they're going to feel better. But most people want to be the best they can be and want to get the most out of life and have as much fun as they have. Well, it's hard to do that if you're not in good health. And if you haven't given your body the things it really needs, then get educated by a nutritionist, dietitian, or their books, your physician, go online, find out what it needs, and try something for a few months, very slowly, and see what you think. How about if you don't miss as many things because you're not homesick, or you don't miss as much work? Maybe you want to miss work, but don't miss as much work. You have more energy. You feel better. You're happier. Those are all things that should incentivize somebody to keep going.
One would hope. And
I think it will.
And the same principles apply to your children. Small changes in their diet, in their routine, in their exercises, especially the younger they are, can actually significantly benefit those children.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
So I'm sorry, what were you? No,
I said kids are going to mimic what their parents do too. So if the parents ideally will get started, it'll help incentivize the kids just looking up to their parents about getting healthier.
So if people want to learn more about this subject and make work on this continuum and make incremental changes to their life and learn about reforming healthcare, what's the best way for them to do that, and what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Well, for me, there's Restoring Health to Healthcare. The book has it. Also, the website, milesofhealth.com, and spelled with a Y. On their own, they could talk to people they know. I mean, talk to if they're internists, if they have a friend, personal trainers. I mean, there are a lot of people who know a lot about this that can help them. It certainly works for a lot of corporations. A lot of corporations have wellness programs.
Right.
There are all kinds of resources.
And a lot of people that can just pick a friend and do it with a friend. If you're just making a small change, like giving up a candy bar, going for a walk, you can have a buddy that you work on this with. And every day you say, did you go for your 5-minute walk? Did you check in and make sure that people can stay on the plan, follow the plan? I mean, that's another option.
That's definitely a great option. Absolutely. People work better when they have some support groups. They'll start their own wellness group.
So thank you very much, Dr. Schneider. We really appreciate you coming on the show. We'd like to have you back again. This is Minda Wilson for Urgent Care.
You go to the doctor and get a diagnosis you didn't expect and you don't understand. If you're like so many of us, your first move is to search the internet for information on your condition. Wouldn't it be great if you could get real information? That's where MedAdvisor comes in, a completely free website that delivers the most up-to-date information from doctors, hospitals, researchers, and clinical trials worldwide. MedAdvisor is free, private, and personalized information about your specific medical condition. It's literally as simple as going to medivizor.com and signing up for free. MedAdvisor is free, easy to use, and saves you hours searching for information you can't find on your own. MedAdvisor is a private, personalized, and HIPAA-compliant resource. MedAdvisor, improving the lives of people with serious or chronic medical conditions and those who care for them. Your personalized medical information is a simple click away at medivizor.com. medivizor.com.